Welcome, CEOs. I am Hermione Olivia, and I invite you to cherish every opportunity to connect the dots. CEO Yourself was created to be a destination for motivation and to inspire you wherever you are in your journey to become the CEO of your life. Coming up on this week's episode of CEO Yourself.
And I think as women, it's so ingrained in us to just be like, go, 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 go. And actually, I think that the best gift you can give your body and the best gift you can give your hormones is to really honour them by slowing down, like really aligning the way that you live and eat with your cycle.
Switching and having that lemon and ginger and just doing something really ritualistic that takes 5 minutes and sets up your day for with a little bit of self-love and self-respect. You know, it's like that when you have made a commitment to yourself, to see it through creates more trust with your relationship with yourself and creates a setting for success.
But it can feel quite overwhelming, that word consistency, I think. And I think that when you're starting out in your health journey, in whatever capacity that is, because it's different for everyone, I think sometimes it can feel really overwhelming. And it's kind of like, okay, consistency, that's all very well, but where do I actually start with that? What does that actually mean?
Jessica Shand is a naturopathic nutritionist and hormone specialist who is known as the Hormone Balance Nutritionist. On this week's episode, she announces her new book, the Hormone Balance Handbook, and we deep dive her CEO Superpower, consistency. Jessica, welcome to CEO Yourself.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you here, and I'm so excited to deep dive your story.
Me too. I'm so excited to share.
You are known as the Hormone Balance Nutritionist, which is so important for women because as I get older, I learn that hormones are at the root of almost all of my health.
Literally everything. What
I'm intrigued to hear from you is how can we as women use our hormones to our advantage?
We can literally, I love how you just said that because it's literally that. It's using our hormones and kind of like nourishing our hormones so that they work with us, for us, instead of working against them and then having, all of the symptoms that so many people suffer with, so many common symptoms like PMS and just so many other things that are hormonally driven. So using the way that I like to talk about it, or my kind of method in the way that I kind of live and eat, I suppose, is that I use food as my daily medicine. So it's not something that I do every so often. It's literally an everyday, consistent commitment to myself. It's like a non-negotiable that the way I eat is to support my hormones, to support my body, to function at its best. And a lot of that is, it can get quite, I think the thing is with hormones, it can feel quite complex. And I think that over the years, it has potentially become a bit too complex in the way that it has been portrayed to us. And I think sometimes that feels really out of reach for so many women. And I think sometimes the science can get in the way of the practicalities of it and how you can literally feed yourself to better hormonal health. You can use food as your daily medicine to help your body to be in balance and to thrive.
I completely agree, and that has been my journey. Is I ignored my hormones for too long until I had a baby, and suddenly I had a thyroid issue, and they were brought to my attention, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. What would your advice be to me and to the listener out there about how to get in tune with our hormones, to understand where we're at in order to then work on supporting them?
I think the very first thing would be to start tracking your cycle if you have one. And if you don't have one, I'll go into that in a minute, but firstly, start tracking your cycle if you have one, because then you can really, and you can use one of the apps like Flow or Natural Cycles, there's so many. But I think that's a really good place to start, because then you can start kind of like pinpointing in your cycle when you're getting symptoms, how you feel, and then you can compare each cycle, and then you can kind of start drawing connections between where you're at in your cycle and how you're feeling and the symptoms that are kind of presenting. And then another really good thing to do as well is to start cycle syncing, which is what I talk about in my book. And it can sound like a big, complex thing, and I think it has been made into something that feels a bit too time-consuming to do for a lot of women. But I actually think going back to basics with it and stripping it back and literally thinking of your cycle in 2 key phases of. So the start of your cycle, the follicular phase, And then the 2 weeks leading up to your period, so the luteal phase, even if you just made tiny adjustments to how you eat based on those 2 key phases, that would make such a big difference, because you're supporting your hormone, your estrogen and progesterone, the ratio. You're supporting that in the way that you're feeding your body. So that can be literally something as simple as during your luteal phase, so the 2 weeks leading up to your period, prioritizing warming, nourishing, wholesome foods that really warm you up from the inside out. So from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, the luteal phase is the autumn of your cycle, and your menstrual phase is your winter of your cycle. So those warming foods, those nourishing foods that warm you up from the inside out, it really helps support that progesterone production and progesterone balance, and how your estrogen balances too. So everything, it's so connected. So yeah, using food in that way to really nourish your body and support that optimal balance is really, really helpful. You can really, once you get into it, which I've got a whole guide in my book of exactly how to do it, the foods that you can eat, recipes to go to follow for each phase of your cycle, you can really be very, very targeted with it. Specific herbs and spices, and different types of carbohydrates and proteins, etc. But from a very basic level, I think the energetics of food can make such a big difference. So on the flip side of the luteal phase, as you start your periods, you're in that winter phase, you're then focusing on, not just from a nutritional perspective, but slowing down, pausing, prioritizing rest, not pushing yourself. And I think as women, it's so ingrained in us to just be like, go, 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 go. And actually, I think that the best gift you can give your body, and the best gift you can give your hormones, is to really honor them by slowing down, like really aligning the way that you live and eat with your cycle and the ebbs and flows of your hormones, your estrogen and progesterone. Obviously, there's so many more hormones, but those 2 key hormones that really kind of like dominate your cycle, I think that's a really, really good place to start.
I can't wait to learn more about your book, which we're so excited to announce here today, and we will come back to that. But I so hear what you're saying about the importance of all of us working with our bodies and with our hormones rather than against them. But I want to go back to what you said about food being medicine. What are some really easy hacks that we can do, hormones aside, for the men and women listening? What are some easy shifts and changes we can make in our life that will really support and nurture our bodies? Like, one, for example, I'm trying to do at the moment is having lemon water in the morning before my coffee, because the difference in how I feel is extraordinary. What are some easy hacks like that you can recommend?
I think my first one would be to be prepped and to think ahead, almost like if you were thinking about your child and how you would want them to eat and feel nourished and strong and be able to function. Having that level of care for yourself, I think, is so important. So I think before we even go into the food, I think that's a really good place to be mentally. I think the mindset piece is really important when it comes to looking after yourself, optimizing your health and enhancing your nutrition. But in terms of kind of like tips and key things to do, it would be to every week do even if it was just for 5 days, but do a good food shop for 5 days, and think about the fact that you need to build a balanced plate, a balanced bowl. So you need those key components that are really going to support your hormones, support your body. Even from outside of a hormonal perspective, just feeling energized and feeling sustained from one meal to the next. So focusing on, I like to, if you could imagine a plate, so a quarter of your plate being a complete protein source. So whether that's animal or a plant protein, making sure that you do have that in every single meal. It's really important in the morning as well. I think that would be a really good place to start when thinking about enhancing your nutrition, because when we wake up in the morning, our cortisol is really high. It's what gets us out of bed. It's what motivates us. But what a lot of my clients do, well, they tell me, and I used to do this as well, is pour coffee into their systems. It just elevates the cortisol. And if you're very stressed, or you've got a lot going on, and you're just a busy mum, or you're got a lot of things going on, that is not always the best way to treat your body first thing in the morning. And I think the way that you treat your body first thing really sets the tone for the rest of the day. So if you can, exactly what you just said, like lemon water, put some ginger in there for the anti-inflammatories, really be intentional about what you're putting into your body and when. And also making sure that you're having that protein, because that blunts the cortisol in the morning, and getting the fiber in. I think protein is so important, and everyone is talking about protein until the cows come home. But I think literally, but I think fiber is so important. Getting that diversity in, and every different plant variety that you can put onto your plate or into your smoothie, or that you can chop up and put into a tray bake or something. Like every single variety in there has a different source of vitamins and minerals and different fiber sources to feed your microbiome, and it all goes back to the gut microbiome, and it's supporting that. It's like the epicenter of your body. Supporting your gut is gonna help every other system in your body. It's gonna help you with your energy, your mood, your neurotransmitters in terms of like your mental health and how you feel. So I think something as simple as how you start your day and getting the variety in. So something like a weekly tray bake, even if it did like 2 to 3 lunches, so you're prepped and you know that meal is really going to sustain you and really nourish you.
I'm sure so many of the women listening today who are hard workers and busy working mums, I often catch myself preparing these beautifully nutritious, colourful meals for the kids, and then I'm just shoving something unhealthy in my mouth, and I'm like, hold on, what am I doing? Like, eat some of the berries. And as you said, it's so easy to fall into the trap, and admittedly I did it today, of you're so rushed and busy, and coffee is just that thing you grab, and then suddenly it's lunchtime and you haven't had anything but a coffee or two, and it does leave you feeling drained and depleted, exactly. So thank you so much for those wonderful tips. I want to move into your CEO Superpower, which I am so excited to deep dive together. You chose the CEO Superpower, consistency. What I love about this is consistency is really one of the key steps to success. Why did you choose the CEO Superpower, consistency?
So consistency to me is how I nourish my body, what I do in the morning, the choices that I make every single day, the way that I support myself, the way that and that level of consistency really helps in all areas of my life, not just my hormonal health or not just my energy levels or sleep. It helps me be the mum that I want to be. It helps me show up in a work, in a work situation how I want to be. It helps me with my, cognitive health, my memory, my everything. Consistency has been the one thing that has changed everything. But it can feel quite overwhelming, that word consistency, I think. And I think that when you're starting out in your health journey, in whatever capacity that is, because it's different for everyone, I think sometimes it can feel really overwhelming. And it's kind of like, okay, consistency, that's all very well, but where do I actually start with that? What does that actually mean?
That's my main question for you today, is I think something that you've talked about is once you are in the flow of consistency, it almost becomes automatic. So the hardest part I feel, and something I get from my community often, is where do I start? And then I think often there's an adrenaline around starting, but then keeping at it is where it becomes hard. What would your advice be to the listener about how to get into that rhythm and that flow where it becomes automatic, the consistency?
A lot of my clients say the same thing. And I always, when I carry out a nutrition consultation with them, I always touch on this, because I think that you have to be, if you want results, you have to be consistent. So you have to be consistent with your even if, say we're talking about supplements, if you're not consistent with taking your supplements, they will never work. They will never have the opportunity to actually make a difference. If you're not consistent with your nutrition, with the way that you build your plate, or the way that you choose to support yourself and to feed yourself, change will never happen. It might do temporarily. It's why diets don't work, because they're short-lived. They're not, built with health optimization in mind. It's not consistent enough over a long period of time. It's not a lifestyle change. So I think with consistency, it's really important to really be clear on exactly which areas of your life are literally crying out for consistency. And I think actually when you sit down and just sit down cozy with a cup of tea or something, grab a notepad or your journal and literally be really honest with yourself, write down an average day, what do you do? What choices do you naturally make? Or what do you gravitate towards? Is it having too much caffeine in the morning? Are you not eating enough? Are you just powering through the day because you're so busy that you just don't have time? And this is what a lot of my clients, busy working mums, say to me. And it can be really, really challenging and overwhelming. But it's like, if you want to feel better, you have to make changes. You have to be consistent with it. So it's like, how much do you want that? What do you actually, asking yourself these questions, what do you actually want out of this? I say to my clients every consultation, how do you want to feel? How much do you want this? And, you know, it's a really good way to just, gain that clarity and be really honest with yourself about how you're living your life. So I think that's a really good place to start, kind of like working backwards.
Something I talk about in our CEO Yourself philosophy is having a vision, having a strategy, but then it's about the habits and the lifestyle that you build that allow those dreams to come to fruition and for the work to work. I am admittedly very extreme. I'm all or nothing. I'm either at the gym once or twice a day or I'm not there for 6 months. I'm a big believer in not setting ourselves up for failure. So at the moment, as a busy working mum with a new business and 2 little kids and the demands, and we're renovating and we don't have a house, I have made the decision that exercise doesn't work for me at the moment. And I've parked it, which has allowed so much mental space. I'm not beating myself up about it. What would you say to the listener about the pressure we put ourselves under and the expectations? Because I believe it's almost, it can often be about just doing a few things really well rather than trying to take on the whole world and do everything.
I love this question. It really resonates as well, because I totally know what you mean. I used to be like that as well, and I have that tendency to be all or nothing, and I know it within myself. So I know that the best thing to do is to just make one small, even if it's the tiniest commitment to yourself. I was talking about this on social media last week about just, there's so many challenges around this last quarter of the year. It's like, let's do this challenge. Let's which is great. And I think it has a place. And I think sometimes we need those challenges. But I think something that really helps with consistency is to just start really, really small. It can be the tiniest thing that, to someone else, it might not mean anything or be big enough. But actually, as long as it's big enough to you and it can be that chain reaction, that can be that one thing that sparks change and creates almost like a positive domino effect in other areas of your life. So I think I think that's really a really like lovely way to that you said about, you're parking the exercise for now because it's just not working for you. You're in that season of life where it's just not. And taking that pressure off, I think, it's a really kind thing to do. Stripping it back and having just one small thing that you do for yourself is enough. And I think we have to remind ourselves that they don't have to be big game changers every single time. It doesn't have to be like, I have to get up at 5 a.m. and do an hour's of exercise and then do this, that, and the other. It could just be the smallest thing, like, not having coffee first thing in the morning, just to help with that cortisol. Just understanding what your body is doing and what it kind of needs from you, which is what I talk about a lot, just looking after your hormones in that way. And I think when you have that kind of like basic understanding of what your hormones need from you, particularly in your cycle, I think it really comes into play. Knowing the times in your cycle that are going to benefit you to just switch things up and change things around, and just being really caring for yourself in that way. And I think, just making one small change and knowing that it doesn't have to be the biggest thing, but one small thing is enough.
Sometimes I think it's even as simple as making the bed.
Yeah,
and
literally.
as you said, switching and having that lemon and ginger and just doing something really ritualistic that takes 5 minutes and sets up your day for with a little bit of self-love and self-respect. It's like that when you have made a commitment to yourself, to see it through creates more trust with your relationship with yourself. And creates a setting for success. In business, I am so often asked, we had our first live event the other night, and I had the chance to speak to my community, and quite a few of them said to me, I have this dream passion project, I have the vision, but I'm really scared to start. What would your advice be to them about where to start?
I think carrying out something I call a life audit is a really good place to start. And it's literally just gaining clarity, a bit like what I've just spoken about, but gaining clarity on which areas of your life need you and need that kind of commitment from yourself. And I think that's a really good place to start, because it can just be, write it all down, prioritize those things that you need to do. So just start with one thing and it will just create that chain reaction. So if it was from a business perspective, so when I started my business, I I got really clear on what my why was and what I actually wanted from my business, how I wanted to feel, what I wanted my life to feel like. It was, I think in business, it can be so much about, like making money and it has to be, like social media, everything has to look shiny and polished and perfect. And I think it's actually going back to, in the very beginning, it's actually figuring out what it is that you want from it. What's your purpose? What's your why? How do you want to feel? How do you want to make other people feel if it's a service-based business or even through products? Like how does that look? And then kind of like working backwards on that and kind of thinking, hey, what are the things I need to do? Very, very basic. What are the things I need to do to make this happen? Is it I need to, go onto Squarespace and start looking at websites, teach myself how to do that, or appoint someone else to help me with that? Maybe delegate someone who is an expert in that area, because you can't be all of the things. I think knowing that early on is a really good thing as well.
So is your advice it sounds very similar to my principles actually, that you develop a very clear vision of where you want to go, you define the goals, and then you go about making it happen. Literally. And you just have to get started, don't you?
You just have to start.
And like you said, I think getting up, making the bed, having the hot water and lemon with ginger, nourishing your body from the first step in the morning, even actually the night before, going to bed a little bit earlier so that you feel refreshed in the morning and ready for the day. And then it has a knock-on effect, doesn't it?
It really, really does. I think when you treat yourself in that way, you are reminding yourself, your hormones, that you are worth it. You are worth making the effort for. And I think that in business, it's so true as well. It's like it can feel really scary. I've started 2 businesses and it's not easy. It's really hard. It shows parts of you that you have never seen and will never experience before until you go through this process. But it's also the best thing in the world and it's the best feeling. So it's like, treat it like I'm kind of like mixing nutrition and business here, but just treating yourself with that level of love and respect and knowing that you are worth making the effort for. And if it's from a nutritional perspective, I think that something that I say to my clients a lot is that, when so say for example, if someone comes to me and they're saying, I can't stop eating sugar, I'm addicted to sugar, which is very, very, very common. And we're trying to switch things up, and I'm writing a nutrition plan and we're coming up with different things that they can eat that are really nourishing and nutrient dense and supportive. It's like, say it's a date with peanut butter or something like that, put it in a lovely little dish and sit down and enjoy a herbal tea with it. Make it a ritual, like really lean into it. And I think that when you do that, and when you treat your daily habits in that way, it can feel, it starts to become you. You start identifying as someone who does that and who feels so good when they treat their body in that way. It's a very positive feedback loop. And I think that that's why it's all about the small daily habits. It's the consistency in those habits that build up and then create, a healthy body, a healthy mind, someone who wants to look after themselves. And I think that when in business, the reason that I picked consistency as my CEO superpower from a business and a nutrition perspective is because it's so true for both. You have to be consistent in business. You have to keep showing up. You have to keep pushing forward even when it's really hard, especially when it's really, really hard. You have to show yourself that you can do it and that your limiting beliefs are, your brain is tricking you into thinking that you can't, but you can. And it's sometimes just about starting, whether it's business or whether it's, changing your nutrition.
And you have to step into the fear and do it anyway.
Absolutely.
I keep saying this to my community and I say it on every panel and in every conversation, but
so true.
Everyone feels the same way. Everyone's human. Everyone's getting up and giving it a go and making mistakes. And even the most esteemed women who come on this podcast, they're the same as the next. Like we're all going on the journey of just learning and growing and doing our very best.
So true.
And you just have to get started and you just have to get going. And then for me, the metaphor when we talk about nutrition is chocolate. I'm a chocolate addict, but I managed over the years to shift from dairy milk to now extremely dark chocolate. And with extremely dark chocolate, it's very hard to eat the whole block.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder. Or it takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I admittedly have it every night in my bath, and it's my special time for me each evening to kind of recoup and reinvest in myself. But I know I'm making a healthier choice.
I love that.
And it feels good to be doing the right thing. But now I want to talk about your book. This is so very exciting that you're launching a book. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Talk to us about how you brought this book to fruition with consistency.
So I guess it started back when I started my PR business, really. I made a decision to do one small thing for my business every single day to work towards my goal. So I know you asked me about the book, but that's how I think I got into this mindset of consistency in all areas of my life, because I decided that I was going to do one small thing, one tiny thing, whether that was writing a paragraph on my website or like doing a bit of proofreading on a different page of the website, or, you know, creating or coming up with a content idea that was going to be able to help someone, like just doing one thing every single day.
Which is such good advice for the listener out there. If you have a full-time job and you have a passion project in mind, get up and do an hour or even half an hour on it in the morning, and it will change the game.
It literally does. And it all builds up and it adds up. And then before you know it, you've actually got a lot done. You've achieved a lot, and it really motivates you. It pushes you forward. And I think that it's just, it takes the pressure off. And it's almost, you're investing, constantly investing. It's like with my book, I knew that I always wanted to write a book. Since I was a little girl, it was literally like my dream to write a book. So when I wrote it on my vision board, I did a New Year's Eve vision board, and it felt really uncomfortable writing, I want to get a book deal or get a book deal.
Because sometimes our biggest dreams are the most daunting. We just park them because they're so badly what we want.
Yeah.
It's too scary to go there, and failure is too scary. So we just like leave them boxed away.
Yeah, and for me, it felt a bit like I had this real imposter syndrome, which happens so much for me. It always comes up, and I have to really push it away and work through it. But it came up for me that, who do you think you are writing get a book deal on your vision board? But I was like, no, this is what I want. I also wrote that I wanted it to be a big publisher, because I knew it would be. I just really wanted it. It's just something that I really, really wanted. So I wrote it down, and then so I wrote that on New Year's Eve, and it's almost like writing it down reinforced that, okay, every day after this, I am going to keep being consistent in my workspace, in what I want to achieve, in helping people, in putting content out. And even when it was really, really difficult at times to be consistent with like social media and business generally, with having a small child and just not having family around us, etc., and not having much support, it's like it almost motivates me more. It motivates me more because I'm like, I need to do this for myself, for my family. I want my little boy to look at me and think, wow, you know, mummy has created something that is helping other people. And I think that when you make your why is bigger than you and you're helping other people, it's just there is nothing better in life. So with the book, I kept thinking, when I write the book, I want to be able to literally fill that book with so much knowledge and helpful information, but in a way that hasn't been done before. I think there are so many books out there, so many incredible books, you know, that break down the science of hormones and really explain all of the intricate details. And I think that is really helpful and it is good for us to know. But I think that what I had never seen in the market, or never read a book about the emotional aspect to that, how the different kind of like body systems all play such a fundamental role in hormone balance. You know, how your liver, your gut, your nervous system, you know, all play such a significant impact in your overall hormone balance, and that real kind of like 360 approach. So every single day I was creating content around those different body systems. You know, I was eating in alignment with my cycle. I was cycle syncing and seed cycling. So naturally, a lot of the way that I was eating and nourishing my body formed natural content for me to share. So I would make an effort. Sometimes I was like, okay, I really can't be bothered now to take a picture of my breakfast. I just want to eat my breakfast. But I was like, no. In my head, I'm like, no, I need to do that, because then I can use it, can help someone else. I can get my messaging across. And I think it's that consistency of just feeding into your pot of like your business or whatever it is that you want to achieve. And then it was summer of last year. I got approached by HarperCollins.
Wow.
About writing a book about hormone balance.
They approached you?
Yeah, they approached me, which I remember I was sitting with my friend. I read the email. I honestly was like, I think I'm dreaming, right? I think I'm actually in a dream. Like, surely this isn't actually happening. I literally didn't say anything, shut my emails down. And then I opened it up again. I was like, no, this is actually happening. Anyway, cut long story short, since then I've had 5 publishers contact me about writing a hormone balance book, which again, I think is outside of it, you know, I'm not saying that from ego reasons at all, but from the perspective of, I have been so targeted with my content of like what it is that I want to, the messaging that I want to get across, what it is that I'm really passionate about. And working with my cycle balancing my hormones has literally changed my life. It's changed my mental health. It's changed my physical health. It helped me create new life, become pregnant naturally. It's literally changed my life. And now it's given me a career that I can help other people. I can help other women create that positive change. So the consistency I feel like the consistency piece plays such a significant role in that, because it kind of just like fed into the bigger picture and made everything kind of fall into place.
What's amazing for me is to see you light up and come alive when you talk about this, and it's because you're in flow with your true calling. And that is a good moment to share with the listener that you had a wildly successful PR company for 10 years that you sold in order to pivot and pursue this dream. What would your advice be for the listener out there who is perhaps in the position that you were in? Maybe they have an amazing job or an amazing business, but they know it's not in true alignment with their calling. How would you advise that they take the leap?
It was something that I struggled with. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't like I was just woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to sell my business. It was a really difficult decision for me because I was making good money. It was successful. I had this lovely team. The girls, I literally we're still such good friends. It was difficult. I think that you have to really know your why. I think knowing your why is so important. And what that is, like, it's going to be different for everyone. But for me, it was like, this is so much more than a business. To me, this is like, I feel like this is such an honor to be able to spend my days helping other women, talking to other women, connecting with other women, and helping them make such positive, long-lasting change in the way that they treat their bodies and the way that they, support themselves through food and using that food as medicine. So for me, it was like, okay, I can do my PR business and probably have maybe a simpler life, because it was kind of like almost running itself because I had it for such a long time and things. But I was like, no, I have so much more to give. And I think that my advice would be to just gain clarity on what it is that how do you want to feel? I think I've already said this, but, gaining clarity on how do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? What kind of life do you want to have? Does your current business or job, does it light you up? Does it make you want to jump out of bed in the morning? Like, if you did this other business or this new venture, how would that potentially make you feel? And I think that if the idea of it lights you up in that way, and you feel that kind of, I had this deep desire, like I feel like I was at a time where I had the juggle was real for all of us. The juggle is real, right? There's just constantly a million things that we're doing, constant to-do lists in our brains, always like a million tabs open. But even though we were like renovating our house as well, just to put into the
It all happens at once.
It was all going on. But even in that time, I feel like almost I was like, okay, I could park it and come back to it later. But I just knew that I had to do it then. I don't know what it was.
The voice gets louder and louder, doesn't it?
It really does. It literally took over, and I was like, I feel like I just need to do this for myself. I need to do this, and I will be really proud of myself later on, even though it's going to be very, very difficult for me to transition like this and pivot, sell my business. And I just knew I had to do it. And I think just gaining clarity on that and just being very, very sure that, and sometimes you might question yourself, like, am I sure? Like, sometimes it might be like, I've had moments where I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Like, should I have just had that?
We all have those fears and doubts come in. But once you lift the lid, it kind of flies open. And I have to say, living in alignment with your true calling and your mission and your why is an indescribable feeling. And any hurdle and challenge, which inevitably there are,
of course,
becomes so much easier and almost exciting to overcome, because you know that what you're doing is what you're here to do.
Exactly.
But that's not to say to the listener out there that you should just jump into the fear immediately. No. I think it needs to be very considered. You need to take the time. Just like renovating a house, you're going to need more money than you thought you did, and you're going to need more time. And despite the glossy front of social media, it is hard. Even when you're in alignment with your calling, it's hard, and it's a juggle, and it's a struggle at times, but it is an indescribable feeling. And I think children are such a beautiful blessing for so many reasons. But one of the reasons for me as a woman is, having had a child, I just knew if I was going to be away from her, it had to be in deep alignment with creating a meaningful and purposeful life for myself.
And I feel exactly the same. It's like it really puts things into perspective, like how you spend your time, what you pour your energy into. It becomes so much more important, because it's not about you. It's about It's about them, and they need you. You need to be present with them. You need to give them that time. And I think that any time you spend away from them, it has to feel good, really, really good. And for me, it felt I needed to feel like I was giving back and helping, because then I felt like, okay, for me, I know not everyone has this, but for me, I felt like then it's worth it.
I agree. So can we summarize for the listener just your top few consistency tips?
My consistency tips would be to do my little life audit. So just work backwards. Think about your life. Think about your like an average day. Think about the areas that need your consistency and are literally crying out for consistency. So whether that's going to bed earlier so that you can get up earlier, whether that's doing a weekly food shop, a healthy weekly food shop so that you can prepare lunches and take them to work. Whether that's waking up 5 minutes earlier so that you can have breakfast and it's not such a chaotic morning. Like, think about those small areas that you can make adjustments to and really show up for yourself. So actually number 2 would be show up for yourself, even on the hardest days, and especially on the hardest days, really show up for yourself. Show yourself that you are worth making the effort for.
And make commitments to yourself that you can keep is
Literally,
what I would add.
Yeah,
because the more you do it and the more trust you create with your own self, the more self-love, the more self-respect, the more you go into flow.
And it's a positive feedback loop, I think. And I think, just make commitments, start small. Don't take the pressure off. We don't need extra pressures. We just need to be able to show our bodies. I think it's like hormone balance. You show your body the love. You show your hormones that you are there for them. You are nourishing and supporting them, and you're eating and showing them that balance, and they'll pay you back.
Incredible advice, and just such an encouraging episode for the listener out there who is looking to pursue their dreams and to see and watch you in practice, just making your dreams a reality and making the big dream, the big scary dream a reality. I cannot wait to read your book and to get educated on my hormones and to be more in alignment with my body. Thank you so much for your incredible insights today. I always close with the same question, which is, what is your legacy piece of advice?
For us to honour our hormones and to work with our bodies.
Where can the listener find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. I'm JessicaShand_. I'm basically there every day sharing my hormone balancing tips and recipes. I share a lot of recipes on there. So come over, say hello. I'd love to connect with you.
And the book?
So the book, I've recently announced my book, the Hormone Balance Handbook. So it's available for pre-order at the moment. And it will be launching in January. So if you pre-order it, I'll be forever grateful.
Amazing. 2025 is your year, Jessica. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much.
It would mean the world to me if you would share today's episode with someone you feel would enjoy it. And don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and leave a comment.